Putin's Poseidon and Burevestnik are falling apart right before our eyes. The dictator's saber-rattling has come to an unexpected end. Trump has unveiled a cutting-edge nuclear missile in response. Shockingly, it remains undetected by enemy radars and is completely unreachable for even the most advanced air defense systems. The US is ahead. What does this signal mean for the world? And first and foremost, for Russia? We'll talk about this in just a moment.
Putin has gone too far. Now the US has responded to the dictator's so-called wonder weapon.
I think that I can still definitely add something new and interesting here, actually.
No, that's definitely everything you could add. It's already been said. First, Putin announced the completion of decisive tests of the intercontinental cruise missile with a nuclear engine, the Burevestnik, which, according to him, has no analogues in the world.
As is known, the Burevestnik has surpassed all known missile systems in the world in terms of flight range, all known missile systems in the world.
After that, he reported the successful launch of the nuclear torpedo Poseidon from a submarine.
This is an underwater, unmanned underwater vehicle, Poseidon, also with the nuclear power unit. For the first time, we managed not only to launch it from the starting device of the underwater carrier, but also to initiate the important nuclear power unit.
But all the threats turned out to be pointless. And now Putin should think carefully about what stories to tell next time. Because now Washington has given a clear response showing the world its new nuclear weapon. On October 29th, a bomber was spotted over California with an unusual object under its wing. It was the latest nuclear missile developed as part of a secret program to modernize the US nuclear arsenal. Defense News called it a leap into a new era of strategic deterrence, noting that the missile is smaller, stealthier, and far more lethal than its predecessors. It is built using stealth technology, which allows it to evade detection by enemy radars. The public appearance of the missile under the wing of a B-52 bomber was its first demonstration in an actual flight. And this was an official test flight, not a training exercise. With a range of over 2,400 kilometers, the new missile allows American bombers to strike even beyond the reach of the most advanced air defense systems. Let us recall that at the end of October, US President Donald Trump ordered the Pentagon to immediately begin testing nuclear weapons, after Putin boasted to everyone about the capabilities of the Burevestnik. Well, let's see what the Russian dictator will brag about next.
Urgent news straight from the heart of Pokrovsk. The Ukrainian armed forces have severed a vital military artery of the Russian army. Putin's mercenaries have been left with nothing. Generals are bewildered. Entire companies are fleeing the battlefield. The dictator is delusional about victories. Our forces are not retreating. A swarm of drones strikes directly at enemy shelters. The enemy's forces are turned to ashes in an instant. You have to see this. A historic battle is unfolding with renewed force. Don't miss it.
Pokrovsk is on the brink. It seems the Ukrainian armed forces may soon have to retreat and abandon the ruined city. Such grim forecasts are being made more and more often by Western military analysts. The command of the Ukrainian armed forces also acknowledges the full complexity of the situation on this section of the front. However, as for surrendering the city, that is not being discussed at this time. Our soldiers continue to methodically drive out the occupiers who have entrenched themselves in residential buildings. There, the enemy is trying to set up strongholds.
The situation in the city itself is difficult. There are ongoing shifting battles, and accordingly we are clearing them out, both individual houses and specific streets. In certain situations, especially with special forces, the enemy manages to infiltrate specific areas. They set up ambushes and accordingly try to adjust fire, both with drones and artillery against our positions. But now we have learned the enemy's tactics in the city, and accordingly, we are localizing all these points.
The fighting inside the city is for every block, every building, and even individual entrances. Neither side has full control over Pokrovsk. However, the Russian army, despite its losses, is desperately trying to storm the Ukrainian city.
The enemy repeatedly tries to enter from the north. We held our positions there and also struck from the flank. He tried to activate several directions from the south, using both sabotage groups and even moving armored vehicles. We carried out counter-terrorist operations against the groups and used firepower against the vehicles.
The losses of the occupiers near Pokrovsk are so great that Russian contract soldiers are massively refusing to take part in the meat grinder assaults and are simply fleeing their positions. The Russians no longer retrieve their wounded and dead from the streets, and their evacuation teams are being reassigned to assault roles. This state of affairs does nothing to boost the occupiers' courage. According to our partisans, the latter are going AWOL in almost entire groups, destroying their own equipment beforehand.
Agents report the disappearance or desertion of several of their fellow servicemen after a series of targeted strikes by Ukraine's defense forces on Russian military positions on the outskirts of Pokrovsk. Command posts, vehicle parking areas, equipment, and UAV units were hit. Some Russian servicemen link the desertion of Russian soldiers and the strikes on the positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation to each other. Some believe that these servicemen were directly involved in this.
Those few desperate ones who foolishly decided to stay at their positions near Pokrovsk face a hungry and painful death. And all because the defense forces have completely cut off the main logistics route. No more delivery of supplies and ammunition for the occupiers. At least 2 airstrikes were carried out on the road by which the Russians managed to bring some light vehicles into the city, after which the enemy was left without a supply route. Now the occupiers can only reach their positions on foot. And thanks to the dense fire from the Ukrainian armed forces, even that is barely possible. Only a handful managed to do so. Recently, Russian soldiers have resorted to any trick just to avoid being spotted by Ukrainian drones. One of the Kremlin's new so-called analog no inventions is these kinds of makeshift armors. Our defenders have nicknamed them tin cans. They don't make the occupiers any less visible, but they get opened up by FPV drones just like cans. No matter where the occupier tries to hide, our drone operators flush them out even from there. A vivid example of this is right now on your screens. A concrete pipe and the hay that the Russian soldier used for cover did not save the occupier. It's worth giving credit to the Ukrainian pilots. They managed time and again to break into even the most heavily fortified enemy positions and strike enemy equipment with precision. It's gotten to the point where our FPV drones are starting to fly right into Russian shelters. When an FPV drone flies into a dugout or an ammo depot, the occupiers simply have no chance of survival. And the best proof of this is the latest statistics from the armed forces of Ukraine. In the past day, the aggressor country's army has lost about 1,000 of its soldiers. The total losses of the occupiers since the beginning of the full-scale war have exceeded 1,157,000 personnel. The armed forces of Ukraine have already destroyed 11,350 Kremlin tanks, over 23,500 armored fighting vehicles, nearly 35,000 artillery systems, and 1,541 multiple launch rocket systems.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
At last, the United Kingdom has put a definitive end to the question of supporting Ukraine. At this very moment, London is tightening the noose around Moscow's neck. Their patience has run out. Storm Shadow missiles are being shipped straight from the factories. The armed forces of Ukraine are on standby. The strike will reach Russia at lightning speed. Challenger 2 tanks are advancing in columns to tear the enemy apart on the front line. This changes everything. The ally is bombarding Russia with fiery balls of vengeance. Don't miss the first details coming up next.
Due to its weak position at the front, Russia is attacking critically important facilities in Ukraine. Civilian facilities, destruction, and casualties among the population. Russian forces attacked energy facilities in several regions over the past day. Restoration work is ongoing at the sites of the strikes. A very important aspect in this matter is the energy assistance from the United Kingdom. The country, understanding the situation, has allocated over 14 million euros.
Putin is trying to plunge Ukraine into darkness and cold as winter approaches. These vile strikes are not only an attack on Ukraine's security, but also a threat to the economic stability and growth of the United Kingdom.
London has announced the allocation of additional funds for carrying out vital repair work in Ukraine's energy sector to help Ukrainians this winter.
Russia has decided to make Ukraine's civilian energy infrastructure a target in this war. Now, as we enter the cold winter, they are intensifying brutal attacks on energy and heating networks as Putin tries to intimidate the Ukrainian people. However, Ukraine continues to demonstrate exceptional resilience despite all the hardships.
Funding for recovery ensures uninterrupted lighting and heating in the homes of Ukrainians, as well as in hospitals and schools.
We are grateful to the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Keir Starmer for continuing humanitarian and energy support for Ukraine, and for the announced energy assistance package. In a situation where Russia is increasing the number of attacks on civilians and critical infrastructure, such solidarity is extremely important.
London continues to put pressure on Russia through sanctions as well. It has announced new restrictions for the Kremlin, which will be gradually implemented throughout 2026. This is a continuation of sanctions against the oil giants of Putin's associates, Rosneft and Lukoil.
These cowardly strikes pose a threat not only to Ukraine's security, but also to the economic stability of the United Kingdom itself. Ukraine's security is our security. Together with our G7 partners, we stand shoulder to shoulder, supporting Ukraine and overcoming global challenges. From
the very first days of the full-scale war, the United Kingdom became one of Ukraine's key strategic partners, not only by providing weapons, but also by creating effective financial and institutional support mechanisms.
The United Kingdom will continue to resolutely enforce our financial sanctions. As part of our broader response to Russia's barbaric invasion of Ukraine,
the United Kingdom has built an important system of military assistance for Ukraine. Financing, innovative funds, international partnerships, credit mechanisms, and support for Ukraine's defense industrial complex.
It is Russia, not Ukraine, that must pay for Putin's illegal war. Using Russian assets to strengthen Ukraine's air defense is our right. Ukraine's security is critically important to us.
The UK Ministry of Defence has signed contracts with companies for the maintenance of armoured vehicles, the production of artillery shells, and the repair of transferred weapons. These contracts provide for the deployment of repair facilities on the territory of Ukraine. It was the United Kingdom that became one of the first countries to supply Ukraine with high-precision missile weaponry. A real breakthrough was the decision to supply long-range Storm Shadow missiles. In 2023, the British government announced the transfer of cruise missiles capable of striking targets at distances of over 250 kilometers. The Storm Shadow missiles became the first long-range class missiles received by Ukraine and were immediately used to strike strategic targets in the occupied territories. This month, the armed forces of Ukraine received a new batch of Storm Shadow missiles. The United Kingdom has provided the Ukrainian armed forces with protective gear, transport, communications equipment, demining tools, as well as assistance in technical maintenance of equipment and digital transformation. Britain became the first country to announce plans to supply Ukraine with main battle tanks.
Compared to the T-80, this one has much better stabilization and optics. Aiming is done using buttons on the panel, similar to a joystick. The turret rotates 360 degrees in 9 seconds. The Challenger 2 maneuvers, making it difficult for enemy anti-tank guided missiles to aim at it. At the same time, the tank itself is very accurate. In the framework of this supply of tanks,
Challenger 2 tanks were also delivered with ammunition for them. The British tanks were supplemented with specialized repair and recovery vehicles, which made it possible to ensure their technical autonomy in use. In 2025, Ukraine and Britain signed a 100-year partnership agreement. This comprehensive document establishes long-term cooperation between the two countries in the fields of defense, economy, energy, justice, science, culture, education, healthcare, and social policy. Britain's assistance is long-term, so we can always count on the support of a reliable partner.